Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Krangled Games put out an update to the November 2023 events with an FAQ that they put out today. If you haven't seen my earlier video that's a bit of a deep dive into all of the events, what they are, when they're running and the like, that's probably a prerequisite to following this video, so I'll put a link to it down in the description below. I recommend just pausing this one and going and having a look at that one, then coming back to the FAQ. However, before you go, there is a big change, and that is there is now an SSF version of these events. So let's quickly go through these. The first question is, I'm new to Path of Exile, how do these events work? Now, while Krangled Games answer this by explaining the technicalities of how the events work, the first thing I would say is that if you are quite new to Path of Exile, you might not find that these events run long enough for you to really enjoy them. These are 7-day events, and my general advice to most players, and some people will be an exception to this, is that you probably won't enjoy these events unless you can get at least to 75 Atlas bonus during a week. So if you're the sort of player who gets 6 hours playtime a week, during the first week you do the first 5 acts, during the second week you do the second 5 acts, and then during the third week you start clearing out white maps and start working on yellow maps and maybe Eternal Labyrinth, in that case, I think you will find that these events will not be a fun play experience, and you probably should give them a miss. That said, of course, maybe you've got holidays during this period, maybe you've learnt a lot during the current league, and you think that you can go a lot faster in the game, and if that's the case, then there's information about how you join these events. For those of you that have been in private leagues, it works exactly the same way as a private league, except of course, the game rules are a bit different in this event. Now, the second question that's asked is the one that has the big change from what was earlier announced. Why are there no hardcore or solo self-found versions of the events? So the answer is that Krangled Games have changed their mind. There is now a solo self-found version of the event. As for hardcore, they've decided to go with a halfway house so as not to split the player base. They've gone for something that is much closer to softcore than it is to hardcore, but that has a little bit of a concession towards the minority that want to play hardcore, and in that sense, they've gone with a higher death penalty than the base game has. So it's not nearly as extreme as it is in the hardcore rule set, but it is something that is more strict than the softcore rule set is. And for those of you that may have missed it, the death penalty is going to be 5 times as much XP loss as it is in the base game. Is the Krangled passive tree the same as it was last time? No, it's not. There's 2 main reasons for this. One is to just create that sense of wonder and experimentation that happens in the first day of the Krangled event. The first day of the Krangled event is going to be when player power is at its lowest, but also when the event is potentially at its most fun. And then there's been some ascendancy changes since March when they ran the last event. Will I be able to use tattoos on passive skills in the Krangled event? Yes, but. Yes, you will be able to use tattoos, but you will not be guaranteed to have access to the 10 attribute nodes and especially the 30 attribute nodes until you're able to find them on the passive tree. The other thing I want to point out is that the Krangled event is probably going to be really tight on attributes on players. So unless you get a Miracle Archnemesis drop, and just a reminder that Archnemesis appears to be a tier 2 rarity unique. So it's not something you're likely to get, and it's something that's quite an effort to compile the divination cards for. Unless you get that, you're going to have a lot more trouble than usual in getting all the attributes you need to equip your gear and to equip all your gems. Will the rare monsters in the Blast for the Past event be the same as they were in early Kalandra League when they were much stronger than they are now, or will they be as they are now? The answer is they'll be as they are now. So there will not be either the extremely high monster stats that you had at the start of Kalandra League on rare monsters, especially 4-mod rare monsters, and there will also not be the deterministic loot conversion that existed, where for instance in Kalandra League, every time you killed, I believe it was a Lunaris touched monster, every item that rare monster dropped that was going to be a unique item or a rare item was converted into a fairly rare currency item. That's not going to be the case anymore. It will use the current game mechanics for rare monsters. How much XP is lost on death? 25% after Act 5 Kitava and 50% after Act 10 Kitava. What's going to happen to mirrored tablets, i.e. the access keys to the Lake of Kalandra itself, at the end of the Blast from the Past event? They will be deleted before they're taken into Standard. Mirrored tablets don't exist in Standard. Will we be able to use Recombinators on mirrored items? No, you will not. You were able to do this in 3.18, but a permanent change to the game was made in 3.19 that prevented that from happening. The final question in the FAQ relates to a specific achievement. I believe that's the one for getting a unique item drop from Hillick. Yes, you will be able to complete achievements in these. You'll also be able to work towards challenges in the first one only. So in the Krangled Passives event, because that is parented to the Ancestor Trade League, that means you will be able to get credit towards challenges that are for the 3.22 Challenge League, the Ancestor Challenge League. But the Blast from the Past event and also the Standing Stones event, these are parented to Standard, so Standard, Non-Void, and Standard Void respectively. So in those ones you will not be able to get credit towards League challenges. You'll only be able to get credit towards the Timeless Achievements, which most players don't track. Anyways, that's the updates and changes for today. May your Varlobs have interesting results, and I will see you around.